Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Fourie, my student number is 203554, and today I will be creating a video presentation relating to the COVID-19 pandemic with regards to the EPS 401 module. So the issue under focus here is the developmental learning gap as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. On the 26th of March 2020, our lives came to a grinding halt due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it transformed our daily lives, profoundly affecting education. The transition from learners having to now attend school via online learning resources inevitably impacted the educational outcomes of these students. Widening learning disparities amongst children are a primary concern, and that is the main focus of this video, is to address these key factors and identify the underlying contributors towards these gaps and disparities that the learners are experiencing and are still having an impact on today that due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So besides the overall decline in academic achievement, there have also been observations in delays in developmental milestones amongst children over this time frame between 2020 and 2021. And there was a particular effect towards young children that were expected to develop and progress in isolation as opposed to attending schools, as well as children with special needs. So the reasons behind this widening gap and the disparities experienced amongst the learners during COVID-19 are under scrutiny during this video. And this presentation delves into research exploring the educational developmental impacts resulting from COVID-19 by discussing the underlying factors that contribute towards the learning disparities experienced during COVID-19. And in order to address these issues and to bridge the gap between these disparities, to get the children up to date and to help them upskill themselves due to the loss in time and other factors, we can provide practical enrichment programs to help these learners in a practical and hands-on approach. So the factors that underlie the issues in focus, according to Torres 2024, the following factors are contributing factors towards the learning gaps resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are 5 key points that Torres has listed. The first one is the disruption of learning environments. So school closures and the shift to remote learning have disrupted the structured learning environment essential for children's development. The lack of in-person interaction and face-to-face interaction with their teachers and their peers has impeded children's cognitive, social, and emotional development. And that has a profound effect on all areas and aspects of their learning and development. The second factor is due to loss of learning time. So the extended periods away from traditional schooling environments have resulted in significant learning loss, particularly in foundational skills like literacy and numeracy. For younger children, missed opportunities for early intervention and developmental milestones can have long-term consequences. The third factor is special education and individualized support. So this is in relation to children that require additional support and that have special needs, as well as children with disabilities. They were profoundly impacted during COVID-19 as services were shut down, schools were unable to be attended. So these learners were not provided with the adequate support that they need to develop appropriately and accordingly to their developmental milestones. For example, learners that need occupational therapy to help them with fine motor skills and gross motor skills, learners that require individualized support with regards to things like speech therapy. They were unable to attend these special support sessions because of COVID-19, and this impacted their learning, and it's still being experienced to this day, where children are experiencing discrepancies in their learning and development. The fourth factor is social isolation and peer interaction. Children rely on social interaction for crucial aspects of development, including language acquisition, emotional regulation, and interpersonal skills. The lack of face-to-face interaction during the pandemic can hinder these developmental processes, particularly for younger children. The fifth factor is inequities in access to resources. So this is with regards to learners that are disadvantaged, especially in the South African context. Learners that do not have access to technology, they were disadvantaged due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as they were unable to have access to technology and online learning platforms, and therefore their instruction during this time frame and their interaction with teachers and peers was very limited, and their learning and development was severely impeded. So the challenge caused by COVID-19 is that students ended up falling 0.5 to 1 year behind their original developmental milestones as opposed to previous studies. And studies suggest that this could lead to 2.8 years of learning loss in the long term, meaning that it is going to be a compounded effect and a snowballing effect over time as these gaps widen over time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, these effects mentioned are not irreversible due to the adaptability of and modifiability of learning programs that can be implemented, specifically with reference to Feuerstein's modifiability concepts, such as the mediated learning experience, known as the MLE, as well as constructivist principles that can be utilized to address the gaps in the learning developments amongst students, particularly with regards to literacy and numeracy. So a plan that can be implemented to overcome this challenge is, for example, to construct a Wason selection task for educators to help bridge the gap between the learning disparities experienced among students. Teachers could divide students into two groups. For example, one group could sit outside under the trees, and the other group would remain inside and watch an educational video relating to a certain topic. The teacher would then test all the students individually on the content related to the video to assess their prior knowledge, as well as to highlight how learning in isolation is not an effective way of learning. The teacher can then form groups of 4 to 6 students with 2 to 3 students from the group who watch the video, and then retest the students in a group setting. And after the teacher has retested the children in an individual test and then with a group test, the teacher can provide the test results to the students by firstly providing individual test results first, and then followed by group results. And then the students would be able to see differences and variances within their results between the individual test and then the test with the group. And the teacher can conduct a classroom discussion on perceived variances, lessons learned from the results, and broader applications. So, for example, the teacher can say to the children, why do you think the learners that were sitting outside under the tree were unable to perform well in the individual test, as opposed to the learners that were able to watch the video? They would have had better results with regards to the content of the video and the content covered in the test. And the children can come up with the conclusion that when they were in their groups, the children that watched the video were able to provide the students that did not watch the video with the added knowledge that they gained. And by demonstrating this, the teacher can then assign group projects that address the initial problems and the learning gaps for completion outside of the class. And the teacher can say, we've now experienced firsthand that when we work in isolation and when we are not exposed to the knowledge and content that others are, we are at a disadvantage. And when we work collectively and when we work within a group and we share our ideas, as well as with mediation with the teacher during these group projects, children can see that learning is an active process, and that learning in groups and helping each other, guide each other through these processes helps them gain a better understanding and reinforces their knowledge and understanding of the concepts taught. Because COVID-19 shows us that learning in isolation is not conducive for students, and therefore learning in group settings is much more effective and helpful. So the students can perform projects outside of class time to bridge the gap between the skills that they lacked during this pandemic, and this can be done outside of school hours so that not to take away from the learning that needs to be done at the current time. So the benefits of this enrichment plan is that it addresses the initial problem of work loss, and it's adjustable to specific work. It utilizes principles from constructivism and Feuerstein's methodology, particularly with regards to mediation from the teacher, as well as imparting knowledge through guided mediation and group discussions. There's a bidirectional interaction of students and the educator, and that allows for mediated experience relevant to students' needs. It also considers the individual students' strengths and the areas of improvement, and this can be done through pre-testing, mediation, and then post-testing after the completion of projects outside of school hours. And most of the work is done outside of class, which limits the time lost while covering work gap from initial time lost. Thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope